Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings, second one today. So after speaking with Daniel Spencer this morning at 7:30, I'm delighted to be joined by Katie Darlow from Number One Real Estate in Wales. As Vaughan Schofield tells me from Belvoir and Wrexham, it's God's country, and it started the English language. So got to be very careful with what I say. I'm not going to say anything in Welsh today. I get myself into loads of trouble. Hi, Ashley. Thanks very much for joining us. So, Katie, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you became an estate agent, please.
Okay, well, nice to see you. And so my name's Katie Darlow, and I've been an agent now for 15 years. I didn't intend to go into the industry. I actually studied economics at uni, but with my dad has always been an estate agent and set up a quite well-known company in Wales, Darlow's, many years ago. I thought I'd do some work experience when I was in uni, and I just absolutely loved it. And it just went from there. So I started working at a company he owned at the time, Roberts, was there for 15 years, left in March, and decided to open my own business in lockdown, the first one, which some people thought was crazy, but actually has worked very well. I'm very pleased I did it. And we opened officially at the end of May, June. And it's been a very busy 7 months so far.
Fantastic. Congratulations. So why did you decide to open in lockdown?
Well, I would have always liked to have done my own thing eventually anyway. So that was always the plan for sort of 10 years ahead. But I thought lockdown actually brought itself as a great opportunity, because usually I'd be panicking that I was missing listings. I was, needed to get things done quicker. Whereas actually lockdown meant I could really take the time to research how I wanted the model to be, how I wanted the business to look, without the stress that every day I was missing listings, because nobody else was listing anyway. So that worked really, really well. And it was a great opportunity to have Zoom calls with suppliers, just take the time to make the right decisions. Whereas I think had we been in a normal market and open, I might have rushed decisions that I shouldn't have done. So actually, I think it took me 6 to 8 weeks to get it open. Whereas I think had that been a normal time scale, it would have probably taken 3 to 4 months. But it actually meant it worked much quicker than usual, just because I had the time to do it.
Okay, so we get a lot of people that are watching this that they're thinking, well, that's a big jump to actually go and start your own agency, especially in lockdown.
Yes.
How have you gone about winning business and getting your name out there and people to know the Number One Real Estate Agent? Is it just Newport that you cover, or is it?
No, but we cover all of South East Wales. So Newport is where we have got one office, as in that was another decision as to whether do I have a high street presence or not. I did decide to, when we've got the one hub right in the centre of the South East Wales region, really. But we cover right up to the Valley regions, sort of Ebbw Vale, Blackwood, Risca, also Pontypool, Cwmbran. And the way we sort of went about launching it, so a lot was done via social media, presence that way, Facebook, Instagram. Also then myself being one of the agents, and I've got 3 other agents also who've opened up their own businesses under Number One. They actually as well have different regions. So in lockdown, following some advice from a few people I've spoken to, we all went about actually phoning our contacts. And I think it was just, for me, it showed more than ever that you don't realise how much worth is in your friends and just people you know and people you speak to daily, even down to, I'd pop to Tesco's and I'd speak to the person behind the counter, and when they say, "Oh, how are you?" I didn't just stop to say, "Oh yeah, good, thanks," as usual. I'd actually said, "Oh yeah, great, actually, I'm opening a business at the moment." And I just, I went that bit further with every person I came into contact with to explain what I was doing. And the amount of times people said to me, oh, do you know, my sister's actually selling, or my brother's doing this or doing that. So give me a number and I'll get them to ring you. The first month was very much all our contacts we knew, people we dealt with in the past, previous customers. After that, it just spiraled, and actually, you know, general public board presence, people started to see more of our presence around, and we luckily we grew very quickly. So it's been great.
Fantastic. And actually, you make a great point. You know, if I said to you, right, Katie, go and grab your phone now and go from A to Z, and how many contacts have you there? Go and start with those, make those calls to those people. And
Yeah.
how much did that cost you?
The time, that was all.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the biggest thing that I learned from what somebody told me as well is don't set your goals too high. So I set myself a challenge to call 2 to 3 people a day in the lockdown, the first lockdown, which I thought seemed, sometimes I thought, well, that's easy, 2 or 3 people. But if I'd set myself 5 to 10, I might not have achieved it. Whereas actually some days then I would ring 4 or 5. But those calls weren't just a 2-minute, hi, I've opened a business. It was me catching up with people as well. So I think you've got to take the time to have your little chat, but also you ask them how their life is and what's going on, and vice versa. Your friends are asking you what you're doing. But by setting the goals to a realistic level, I found that worked really well, because I didn't feel deflated. I felt as if it was working well. And over a period of, you know, 2 to 3 months, ringing 2 to 3 people a day actually meant I contacted a lot of people. So that's the other thing I've learned, is just set my goals to be realistic, not too extreme, I would say.
Okay, fantastic. So just coming back to when you open, how did you plan your, you know, where you want to be? You know, have you got a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan? Have you got your Everest plan as to where you want to be, and then working backwards from that?
Yes, yeah, I did do a 5-year plan. I haven't quite done the 10-year yet, but I have done a 5-year. The first and year 1 of that is going well. So I decide, like, that decision as to whether to have the high street branch or not. I decided that there is still a place for it. And the strong thing I've found is actually it's more about the staff working in there. Even this year, you know, the public aren't allowed to come into the office really. But when the team are in there together, they do bounce off each other. They do, you know, it's nice to see people, nice to talk about things. And I think where we'll probably head in the future is maybe a mix of home working and office based, so that it's probably the best of both worlds then. But you know, and now and again I get asked, oh, do you have an office, by the public? I don't get asked it that regularly. But I do think it's nice to have it there. It's, to be honest, where our office is in the centre of Newport. So if anything, it's a big billboard as well. You know, it's an advertising space. And actually a really good location just for people the staff to be able to come together. And when we have our meetings, or when we have obviously socially distanced in a minute, but when we do, it's, you know, it's nice to be able to have that central place to go to rather than just someone's house.
So for people that, I know there's a few people watching this that are just similar to you, are just starting. When you do your planning, what do you do? You know, where do you start? So some of the questions I get asked is, what would I do to start? You know, so how did you plan?
I did it working backwards, basically. So I worked out, you know, obviously I do the job because I actually really enjoy it and I love it. But yes, there is a whole point. I'm doing this as a living, to earn a wage. So looked at the figures first of all, as in how many completions did I need per month, per year, in order to make the office run by itself, you know, without me even earning a profit, just to break even. What do we need? Then worked it back, not, you know, to that, how many completions did that mean sale agreed? How many sales agreed? You know, how many valuations? Because you're going to need more valuations than anything else. And then that's when you get that figure of what you actually need, it suddenly makes things seem a lot clearer and easier when I know the volume of valuations I need on a weekly basis. And by valuations, I don't just see that as, somebody who's looking to sell tomorrow. I treat a valuation as a meeting with somebody, so I'm very, very keen to say to clients that you don't have to be selling. I'm quite happy to come and see you and have a chat, just to let you know the value of your home. It might help you make some better decisions this year. And I think they feel a little bit more comfortable with the fact that there's no pressure that I'm going to say to them, right, can I list it tomorrow? So that's how I did it, is working from the top back. Did a cascade basically of what the completions meant to sales meant to valuations, and then what that meant and how am I going to get myself in front of that many people each week. And then did obviously multiplied that then monthly and annually. And then the 5-year plan is a little bit different. So my model is basically that agents work under the number one banner, but they're all self-employed. So they have their own limited company. Every listing that they get, they earn a percentage of that as their fee. And they use our services then to advertise it, do the admin behind it. And that way, for me, it worked as well, just in the sense that they get complete freedom to work, as in I don't mind what time they do their valuation. I don't mind what time they do their viewings. I'm not on at them every day to say, where are you at 9 o'clock? I don't mind. I don't care. They can work when they want. So that works for them, but it also works for me. And especially after the year we've had, not having to stress and worry about employing a huge number of people. Whereas at my previous company, we were employing 70 staff at some points, which was hard to manage.
So how would you go and recruit these self-employed people? Where do you find them?
Do you know, it is a difficult one. And I was very lucky that I've got 3 great agents who decided to open their own businesses under the number one banner. And, I think for them, a lot of the drive for it came from managing their own diary. I think that was a big thing, as in it meant that they can control what they do. Also, it also gives them the opportunity to earn way more than they ever would at a normal estate agent's. Typically a manager for a branch, I reckon, would earn in our area between sort of 30 to 40,000 a year. The scope that with this model is endless, but I would certainly expect them to be earning beyond 40 in time annually. And I just think that's never been there before in the typical model. There was always a cap, and everybody has always said estate agency is not the best paid job, but you do a hell of a lot of work for it. And this way, I think it meant you get in, you get out what you put in. Admittedly, it's not going to be for everybody, and you've got to be somebody who's prepared to put the legwork in to get those listings, to help people. But I do believe as well, if money is your main driver, you won't be 100% successful. I think you've got to care about the clients as well. And our company motto is an agent for life. Everybody that I list, everybody's home I list, I want them to use Katie again in future. And similarly then for my other agents, I'd like to think, and I'm sure they want exactly the same. They don't just want one sale, they want the sale 7 years down the line and next time again.
So I wonder where you got that from. You didn't get that from America by any chance, did you?
Mixture. I took a lot from America. I mean, that's where we met, wasn't it?
So we met at a cocktail party in San Francisco. We've got to be very careful here. So yeah. At the NAR conference over a year ago, and I know that you were at Boston the year before.
Yeah.
But I also went to the NAR conference. My first one was 20 years ago, or 21 years ago, actually, because I remember I came back and my MD said to me, what did you learn from it? So I said, they're talking about something called WWW, World Wide Web, but don't worry about it. I got that slightly wrong. But I can't believe that was only 21 years ago, about the World Wide Web. It was incredible. But I always took from there was that once you buy through an agent, that agent is your agent for life.
Mm-hmm.
The Americans have got an incredible stay in touch policy, whereas our stay in touch policy in the UK is, well, from all my training, 95% of agents don't have any stay in touch policy for full stop. So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about America.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously that's one of the things you took from there.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to go in the first place?
So I joined Property Academy about 4 years ago now, and I joined the Summit group there whilst I was at my old company, which meant that year the trip was actually to San Francisco, where we met Australian agents over there, and we did a 3-day course, basically learning about technology. At the time, we visited Facebook and some of the Airbnb headquarters, and basically learned a lot from them. But a lot was taken from just chatting to the Australian agents, on the bus to places, on the bus on the way home from places, about how they work and their model. And I guess what I've sort of seen is, this is very broadly speaking, but I see Australians are very much on the listing side, Americans very much on the buyer side, and then the UK is just somewhere in between. But neither doing either side brilliantly. So I tried to take a bit from both, really. And, you get that in America where people say, oh, yeah, but, Bob, he's my realtor. That's just how it is. And over here, we use the same plumber or hairdresser or those people, but people forgot who they bought their house through 7 years ago. We'd often say, oh, who did you buy it through? And they're like, oh, I don't remember. I'm not sure. So I wanted to change that. I wanted to build the relationship. And the one thing I think has been really different for me and my business compared to other agents locally is that whatever I list, I do all the viewings on, which means I am busy, and I have sort of given myself a cap of properties I can take on each month. But it means that the relationship between me and the client is so much stronger. I know more about that home than a negotiator would just pop in there the following week. And I think that is the foundation of how, I'm going to build relationships that for future where people do hopefully come to me for life. And I took that from things I learned in America, and from speaking to the Aussies.
So when you were in San Francisco, amazing going to see Facebook and stuff like that, companies like that. What else did you take away from those companies? And then I would like to come back and talk about what you took away from the Australian.
The main thing is, I think, is that they don't rest on their laurels. They don't sit there and just keep going and not innovate. They're permanently thinking of the next best thing, the next thing to do. And you know how it is in this country. I don't expect that there's going to be agents locally who will start doing the same as I'm doing, because people will copy and people will do that. So I think the main thing I took from them is that you can't ever sit still. You need to constantly learn. You need to constantly evolve, and you've got to keep thinking of the next best thing. But learning is the key. I think a lot of agents in general, they sort of think, oh, I've done the job for 30 years. I don't need training. I don't need to do anything differently. But if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get the same results. So I think learning, innovating, and you've got to keep thinking of how you can be better, how you can improve. How can you do that job better for the customer?
We had Josh Fegan on Tuesday morning, and he said exactly what you said. About, do you want to be working for a self-development company, or do you want to be working with a know-it-all company that isn't going to innovate, isn't going to improve? I know which one I would rather go and work for. I've got a question here from Andrew, so thanks, Andrew. What is the cap on the amount of properties, Katie?
I've set mine at 20 new listings a month for myself, because I think that is the highest amount that I can maintain in actually, I've kind of worked out a figure of how many viewings I expect to get for each of those properties and fitting that into my working week. As in, I say working week, I'm not set to Monday to Friday anymore, but roughly same number of hours. I've worked out that I think 20 is a cap of a month taken on per agent per month. Once I start getting beyond that, then whether I either pass certain valuations to one of my colleagues then to take on as their listings, or whether we look to recruit more agents for different areas. But so far, that's been broadly where I've been sitting, and it is manageable and it is working well. I do think, though, if you went up to that 30 mark, I think people would struggle if it's just you managing them. I do have backup. I've got two ladies who do our admin in the offices, and I'm not doing all the emails and phone calls by any means. I can't physically do that. And they're great. They're fantastic. So they massively help with the admin front. But in terms of me doing valuations and viewings, 20. And then I use a photographer and another lady to do my listings separately.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Andrew, does that answer your question? Let us know. Thanks very much. So coming back to being in the car with Aussies, apart from the fact they like to drink,
Yeah.
what else did you learn industry-wise? So you mentioned them about being very good for listings. So is there anything you put in your systems and processes that have improved your listings, that have improved your conversion rates?
Yes, presentation is key. I think, the Aussies actually get their clients to move out of their homes to stage them prior to listing a lot of the time. And it's seen as quite a normal thing to do that. So I would say, depending on the property, sometimes I will give people tips of literally, paint this wall this color, or I'd suggest doing this for the pictures, move those things out of the way for that or this. And even those little things, I think, massively help. But also the key thing I took from Josh when I listened to one of his training sessions is to contact people 6 months or 12 months, and then maybe just annually after, with an annual checkup. So anybody that completes, diarising them now for 12 months ahead, just to touch base with them, see how they are, see how their daughter or son is settling in at that new school, and also just to give them, free of charge, an up-to-date figure on their home to see what it's worth. Sometimes if you spoke to somebody, say 2 years down the line, and the market had a boom and actually the house had gone up by 20,000, they might be shocked. Lots of times I've spoken to people and they say, really? I didn't know my house was worth that. And then they decide to move. So ultimately, it's to be helpful, but, to gain business for the future. Yeah, so that's the main things. I say staging, I think, is going to come in more, and we're looking at that now. And also the continual contact with them after completion. It's not just, they've completed, bye-bye. It's keeping in contact with them and actually diarising time to do that 12 months ahead.
Okay, so what gets scheduled gets done.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we were also talking offline about sales progression, and you said it's absolutely crazy at the moment, and you've still got people that are looking to get everything done by the stamp holiday deadline at the end of March. So how are you educating and preparing your sellers and your buyers to be sale ready and buyer ready, whether it's even if, forget the deadline, how are you doing it previously?
The one key thing we've noticed over the last 6 months, and I'm sure other agents would say the same, is that searches are taking so much longer than ever before. They used to be 2 to 3 weeks in our area, and now they're 6 to 8, if you're lucky. So the main thing I'm suggesting is, when I'm valuing properties, is asking clients, first of all, do you have a solicitor in mind? Have you contacted anybody yet, to get your client care pack early on, fill in the fixtures and fittings list and fill in the property information forms, because if you can do that when you go on the market, if you agree a sale within 2 weeks, your solicitor can send that contract out immediately to your buyer, which shaves off approximately 2 weeks, I would imagine, on that process. And then just really, it's simple contact is just remembering to actually say to the vendor, right, you're going to get a pack now from your solicitor, because I think often we think it's normal, but we do this every day. The person who's moving hasn't maybe moved for 20 years and they don't see it as a normal day-to-day job to do. So it's just, I remember actually say to people, when you get that pack, fill in those forms and get them back to your solicitor as soon as you can. And I'm also saying to buyers, ask your solicitor to apply for searches at the front end straight off, because many solicitors in the past would wait till the mortgage offer's in before they apply for searches. And if you want a sale to go through in under 3 months now, you can't wait for that. And I say to them, you need to pay for those up front to make sure that it ties in that normal time scale, really.
Brilliant, thank you. Morning. I feel like it's still morning. Afternoon, Pete. Afternoon, Mark. Thanks very much for joining us. Afternoon, Paul. Thanks very much for joining us as well. Very grateful. You also touched on social media at the start. About Instagram and Facebook. What sort of things are you putting on there, and what are you doing to get your face out there in the community?
So I think, again, especially this year with people not being able to come and see us face to face in the office, the place where they can see you is Facebook and Instagram. And we're now finding that we're getting more requests for viewings and for valuations through Facebook and through our Instagram marketing. So we have used Instagram to grow our following. We're now way over 1,000 followers. Again, I use it's actually my sister does, but she did a marketing degree a few years back, and she runs our social media. I think it's important. It looks fresh and it looks right, and the image behind it is good. So if anybody was looking at starting an Instagram page, I think that's key, is get your branding right. But also then keeping constantly, making sure the posts go out at the right intervals, not to be annoying, but also enough that you're keeping continual contact with people. A nice house, a video of that on Instagram. People are interested to see, home programs. People watch them on TV every day. People like to see what decoration people have done and what the inside of a home looks like. Also for COVID, a video tour means that we don't have to take people unnecessarily into somebody's home where it risks their safety. If we can take 8 definite, people who are very interested into a home, as opposed to 15 that are 7 of which are just looking for the fun of it, it's less hassle for the vendor. There's more actual genuine buyers going to see the homes. The vendor's more pleased with that. But it's meant, I've had people actually say, you're current on social media. I'm a lot of people are techie these days, especially that I'd say 25 to 35 age range of people, especially, they are permanently on Instagram scrolling through. And that's the other thing, is target market. Again, those people are key for me, the 25 to 35 age group, because if I can get them now as customers and they're happy with our service, they're the people who are going to move 3-4 times in their life.
So how did you build up the Instagram followers?
So I can't pretend to know too much on how this happens because I don't. As I say, my sister actually runs it, and she is far better at that than me. So it's intricacies, I think, of following the right people, following the right tags, the hashtags you use, the home tags you use. So she is probably, maybe that's for another lunchtime session to ask her on the social side.
What's your sister's name?
Sorry?
What's your sister's name?
Her name's Amy, same surname, so Amy Darlow.
Amy on.
Yes, so she grew the following through that. Some great graphics, to be honest. Colours that we chose, a lot of people like, and I know that sounds simple, but colour, it was important. And I do think it is down to making sure that, the page looks right, the way things are laid out. You've also got to be... Sometimes that people do say, in America, they did say, don't worry too much about being scared to do a Facebook Live or getting, you can't make it perfect immediately, and sometimes more content's better than none. But I do think there's a fine line. You also don't want to make it look wrong, the posts you're doing, that then discourage people from perhaps calling you for evaluation or contacting you.
So just out of interest, people watching it, how well are you making use of Instagram as social media to try and attract people and get some market appraisals? And are you using video on Instagram as well? So I must admit, this will go on IGTV under my Instagram post. But apart from that, I haven't really thought of it as an instruction winner. So thank you. And do you make a lot of use of Facebook, or it's more focused on Instagram now? Is that where you find the market is?
Both actually, and different demographics. So Facebook, I'd say, is a slightly older demographic now, because it started further back than Instagram did. A lot of the people who are using using Facebook now are slightly older, and there's, for example, I know that my partner's dad, he only joined Facebook a couple of months back, and he's loving it. But he's nearly 70. So there's people who Facebook is attracting different age range, whereas Instagram, I think, is like I said, that 25 to 35, 25 to 40 range. I'm not saying that there's different, not others on there, but that's what I find is it's different demographics for each medium, and then different again for Twitter, different again for LinkedIn, both of which, I would say I do need to do more. That's something I want to improve on, is my LinkedIn presence. But that's the key, is I think you can't just do one. Instagram and Facebook are two different demographics, so you do need to do both, and possibly a slightly different type of message to each one, to look at who you can look at. If you get a business account, you can actually check your insights, and you can check the volume of followers, of whether they're male, female, or other, and what age range they're in. So at least that helps you to tailor what you're posting to the different demographics then.
Lovely. Mark says, I don't really personally use Instagram, but we do have business pages and post on both Facebook and Insta. And he says, thanks, Katie. I'm officially old. And thanks, Preston, for joining us as well. So self-development yourself. Obviously, I know you've been to America, you've been to, we talked about off air, you like to go to Australia and Arik. And obviously, you're a member of a property academy, and Summit, and Property Academy is exceptional, and Peter Knight is exceptional. What are you reading? What are you listening to that helps you?
So a book that actually really helped starting the business for me was The E-Myth, for small businesses. Why most small businesses fail, but The E-Myth. That actually was really useful in starting the business. Day to day, I actually love reading The Secret, and there's a new version of it which I had for Christmas. I just find sometimes I'll even open up The Secret on a page, literally, and just read 1 page, 2 page sometimes, just to keep focused on daily how you go about things and how you think about things. Because again, something I haven't done is focus on other agents a lot in the last 6 months, because I haven't had chance to. But actually, without thinking about it, it's meant I'm more focusing on us, our business, what we're doing, not worrying about the competition every day. And I do think that it's easy to do that, in an area when you're looking at, oh gosh, so-and-so's had 3-4 more listings than me this week, or it's easy to get wrapped up in that. But I think that, and reading those books just focuses back to yourself, I find. But I have got a list of books. I've got quite a few I've got due to read. Other than that, I do watch regularly little clips on YouTube, little videos, just to, again, bring you back down to make sure you're focused in the right direction.
Brilliant. So one final question, because I know that you are really busy, and I'm really grateful for your time. So thank you. Um, Obviously, whether it's at Roberts, whether now you've worked with some top performers,
Mhm.
what do you think the qualities are needed to be a top performer in a state agency?
To be a top performer in agency, I think you have to care about people. I think you've got to care about the reason. Moving home for a lot of people is a very emotional thing. And whether that's a positive, as in they're moving because of a growth of family, or they're getting married, or whether it perhaps is a sad situation where they've lost someone, it's, a death, divorce situation. Very, very, touchy sometimes with a lot of people. And you've got to, I think, number one, care. Time is the other thing. A lot of agents, I'm being told, when I go on evaluation, they're saying to me, oh, the other agent was only in here for 15 minutes. You've spent an hour with me and you've explained things to me. So time, I'd say, make sure you allow enough time for your evaluations. Don't cram. You're better off to do 5 great ones than try and do 10 mediocre average ones in a day. And then also to explain things to people, even what you think might be obvious isn't obvious to them. And they might not like to say, because they might feel silly to ask a certain question. So if you just explain it fully from the start, when we say jargon and different things and how the process works, I think that's how they seem to feel more comfortable from the offset. And also, you've got to want to do well for yourself. You've got to, I think, not just now to help people move and match people to property. I think an interest in property is key. You've got to like what you're doing. And you've got to have, I think, just certainly some personal goals. If you've got personal goals, whether it be to buy a handbag, a house, or go on holiday next year when we eventually maybe can, you need those little goals to keep setting yourself throughout life, to be focused, to really drive that through your work, I think, as well.
Fantastic. Look, thank you so much for your time. I'm really incredibly grateful. Thank you, everybody, for watching today, or whether you're listening on replay. Just a reminder about the Daniel Spencer Masterclass, which is taking place next week, starting at 7:30 to 8:30, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There is a few places left. I will post a link on here. Hopefully, I'll see a few of you. Katie, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Really good afternoon and a lovely weekend, and I wish you safe and healthy, and everybody over this period. So thanks so much.
Thanks for inviting me on here. Thank you.
You're welcome. You've been a great guest.